Welcome to this episode of the Daily Hotpot. I am your co-host Drift, aka Robbie.
And I am Khan. Good morning, everyone.
Happy Friday, folks. And no, we will not hit you with another voice acting lesson today on this pod. Khan, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I hope everyone's having a great week. And to close out the week, I think we have another triggering topic for the week.
Yeah, I think, don't worry guys, this won't be emotional damage. I think this is pretty physical. It's very much physical damage. Khan, won't you like to tell the people what we got in store for them for this Friday closer?
For today's topic, we are going to talk about a time where we got a little boo-boo.
No, we don't boo-boo.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Khan, why don't you, do you want me to kick it off today, brother?
No, why don't I kick it off today?
Oh, I like it.
Mm-hmm. So the story goes. Actually, before that, I have an older sibling, and
Classic.
her and I, we didn't get along too well as a kid. This kind of accumulated in one incident where I think I was like 5 and she was maybe 7. And I remember one time where we were just playing in the front yard. I think we lived in an apartment back then. So we were playing in the front yard and I was just running around different houses and she was following me. And for some fucking reason, as a dumbass little kid, I see a little rock,
Mm.
a shiny little rock, and I decided to like chuck it back at her.
Oh.
And bam, it hits her right in the eye. And her face was just swollen up for pretty much like the entire week. And it was just traumatizing for the both of us. But what's crazy, that's not even like the story.
Oh, I felt that, yeah. Go on.
Yeah, so at the end of this week, during the weekend, once again, we were playing around in the house this time, and we were just messing around, and I think she was reading a book, and as a dumb kid and a very selfish kid, I'm like, "Yo, let me see that book," and blah, blah,
Mm.
and we started, like, fighting over the book, and she took the book, closed it, and smacked me in the face with it.
Oh.
And the edge of the cover, and I guess it must have been sharp or something, it hit me right between the eyebrow, and in particular, close to my right eyebrow. And it left like I guess it cut it super deep and it bursted the one of the main arteries on your
Oh.
face. So this 5-year-old, maybe 6-year-old, crying out and his whole face just covered in blood running down my face, running down the shirt,
Oh.
and everyone's freaking out. My sister's freaking out, my mom's freaking out, and I'm just there. What the heck is I can't see anything. All I'm seeing is just red, right? My whole vision is just blood. And it just a big blur. And I guess sometimes after it maybe it went away, but it was such a dangerous incident because that is like one of your main, I guess, main artery on your face where you wouldn't die from it, but like it could definitely have caused some serious damage. And I remember the following day, for some reason, we still kept the shirt. And this was like a little kid white shirt. And it just turned completely red. It was just now the front side of the shirt was just red, dyed red from my blood. And to this day, I still have that little scar. It still hasn't gone away yet. As a reminder to don't fuck around with your older sister. She'll wreck your face, apparently.
Oh, that's, while you said that, I was gonna say, like, man, you know what? As a younger sibling, as the youngest of 3, like, I think I can personally say, because I've felt this before, you deserved it. But, maybe...
I mean, just from the way I told the stories, I clearly deserved it.
Maybe not the bleeding and the trauma, but as for just the immediate
Yeah.
hit of the book, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
know what older sibling wouldn't have bonked you in the face with some knowledge. That's
Yeah.
you learned a lot of things that day, not just from the pages, though.
I don't even blame her. I got humbled as a 5-year-old.
You need a little humbling in your life, a little bit of hum.
Apparently, we talked about this last time. I needed even more humbling, apparently.
Maybe that's the theme of the pod, Con. Like I said, this is all just therapy for us, understanding that maybe
Mhm.
maybe life needs to knock us down a few pegs.
For real.
Oh. It's funny you say that because this is not my story, but I remember last summer I had a kid. We had taken our kids for our summer camps. We had taken them to what we call Happy Hollow. It's a park in South Bay, and it's a kind of it's basically like a little kids like park. Like it's not like a Six Flags or something where it's kind of all ages but maybe more geared towards adolescents. Like it's very specifically for the age group of like 5 to 7, kind of the younger kids. And they had a play structure in there where one of my leaders had a group of kids there, and the kids were rolling their there's a slide, and they were rolling their water bottles down the slide, for funsies.
Oh
Someone at the
no.
bottom catches it, and
Mm.
one of them decided, oh, well, let me roll my bottle down. And it is a metal, it's a metal, flask. And she rolls it down, and the kid at the bottom turns around to my one of my leaders because they call her name. Turns around, and that water bottle comes flying out of that tubular slide at Mach 5 speed and doinks her right at the orbital, or like really right near the orbital of her head, and just straight up she gets like sent back, and all of a sudden she's obviously crying, and she's like down there. We see the bottle like a fucking bullet, like a loaded smoking shell on the floor, and we go like, oh no, are you okay? And then we look at her, and then she's like holding her head, and then it's almost like such a dramatic movie. There's like almost like a close in on her head, her hand over her forehead, and then give it a second. She goes like through her tears, through her fingers, blood starts pouring through her
Oh
fingers from her
no.
forehead. And the panic that set in from my staff member who was leading that group, like she started yelling, like oh my God. Yeah. I remember having to call her parents that day and like sending her home, and they picked her up and she had to get like some stitches. Oh,
Yeah.
not my story, but that made me think exactly of that.
Kids are dumb, and it's, as an adult, probably super terrifying to see blood come out of a kid.
Oh,
Like,
especially when it's not
even if it's
mine.
like, yeah, even like obviously most things are not that big a deal in the long run, but just seeing it happens, like what the, like a million things race through your mind. You're like, what's going on? What should I do? My
Yeah.
goodness.
It's especially when, again, as a summer camp, someone is dropping off their most beautiful creation in the world to you and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to work. Please don't let this thing, my child,
Mhm.
get hurt, please." And I immediately called parents and go like, "Yeah, by the way, your kid's orbital's like busted open with some stitches." So because kids, and parents understand. I don't think parents have. I've never really had a tough experience with parents because they understand that kids are kids and they get hurt, kind of how they grow
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Anyways, my story is definitely involving me as a kid getting hurt, as with this whole topic. And it's funny enough on the reverse end because, as I said, I am a camp leader and director. But this was when I was a summer camper at this camp. I was part of a camp called Sports Camp, and we were at a field trip at an indoor water park. And for water parks, if for those of you that have been to them, when they have that like play structure, it looks like a normal playground structure. But obviously, it has holes in the floor because they're like drains, because they don't want water to build up on these surfaces and these structures. There's holes. I play on the structure, hanging out with my friends, having a good summer time, splashing around, having a jolly good old summer indoor at the water park. Then I am walking away from the indoor water structure. And you have to keep in mind that this structure is also in a pool, but the pool is like super shallow because it's like really it's focused on the playground structure that's like spraying water everywhere, stuff like that. But I get out off the structure and I'm standing next to it at the base of the stairs. And I'm currently in what, like maybe like a foot and a half, 2 feet of water. And one of the leaders calls out to me. He goes, "Hey, Robbie, come over here. I need to talk to you." And me, I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, let me walk towards him, get out of this pool." And as I take a step, I feel like something tug on me. And I
Oh
was like,
no.
what the fuck? Like, the fuck? I lift again, like my foot, and I go like, the fuck? Someone's like tugging like the back of my leg. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, get the fuck off me. I think it was like my friend or something. So me not thinking to like look at what's snagging me or like holding on to me, I said, get the fuck off me. I didn't say that, but like my thought process. So I kick forward my right leg and I like yank it as hard as
Oh.
I can forward. And I'm like, yeah, like, fuck off, get off me. And then I walk forward and I walk out towards the shallow end of the pool, and I'm all of a sudden out of the water right in front of this leader. And I look up to him and go like, "Hey, so what's up?" And this leader looks at me and goes, "Are you okay?" I'm like, what do you mean I'm okay, I'm okay. And then he like points down and behind me, and I turn around and I see that from where I stood and walked over to the edge of the pool, there's a trail of like misted, mixed in blood in the pool.
Oh no.
And I'm like, huh? And I look down at my left leg, my left, my left Achilles. Essentially, it's literally exactly where it's placed is my left Achilles. And I look down, and I just see that where my Achilles is, there's like a deep red chunky bit missing.
Oh, what?
And yeah, and then around it, like probably a foot from the bottom of my like where my foot becomes the sole of my foot up to like a foot up my leg near the bottom of my calf. The skin is like gone, like ripped. And I look and I'm like, it felt like a cartoon. I like looked and I looked up to him and I was like, the panic that like slowly seeped into my mind, I can't describe to you how like it was like venom in a blood system. Like I could feel it slowly settle in. I'm like, what's wrong with my leg? How come I not hurt right now? And then as it slowly hit my like heart and mind, I was like, oh my God, why do I have like a tiny bit of like meat of my fucking back of my leg missing? Like what the fuck is happening? And immediately the leader like grabbed me and was like, oh no, and like calling for like lifeguards, like, oh lifeguard, we need medical, we need help. And I like disassociated. My soul is levitating into the ceiling of this indoor park, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening? I just like this out of body experience of seeing me just being carried off by this like 6'5" linebacker of a leader, like carrying me on his shoulder, and they take me to the medical office and they lay me down on my belly because obviously the injury's on the back of my leg, so they need it facing up. And they're looking at it and it starts bleeding profusely, obviously. And they start like stopping the bleeding, putting like cloth over it and everything, and then they go like, hey, and my leader turns to me and then they're saying something, and again I'm like disassociated out of my body, so I'm not even hearing. But then, you know, I come back because my leader taps me and goes like, hey, look buddy, they're gonna put some alcohol on it, it's gonna hurt buddy, but you have to pull through. So they gave me some like gauze to like bite down on, and oh my God, one of the worst pains I felt is, I guess they were pouring, you know, disinfectant alcohol, like iodine is probably what they were putting over it. And as soon as that shit hit my wound on the back left of my leg, it burned like the 7 fire hells of Satan's nutsack. It like was horrifyingly painful. I like, that was like the only time I like mentally remember like kicking and screaming. They had to hold me down like I was from hospice, bro. Like they had to hold me down like some crazy person. I was kicking and screaming, and I don't even know, like by that point, like I tell most people that I feel like I blacked out because I don't even remember. Like I just remember at some point they were able to bandage my leg and I was like home. I don't even remember. So what I come to find out, or rather what I'm inferring, and this is what I tell people because no one really saw what happened. It happened kind of underwater with the play structure. My guess is that my leg, or like my skin, got caught on the hole of the drain of the play structure, and you know, me not knowing what it was and like get the fuck let go, me kicking forward like basically ripped flesh and skin off the back of my leg, and then yeah, I just bled all the way in the pool. And to this day, it took me like weeks to heal, but to this day that injury left a scar on my back left heel. And I show people all the time because it's interesting because the scar itself is in the shape of a devil's pitchfork.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I remember this scar. You mentioned it before. So this is the story that became of it.
Yeah. This is the pitchfork scar I have the back of my left heel. And holy moly. That was like, I remember one of the more traumatic experiences I had as a kid. I know it's specifically traumatic because I blocked it out. Like blocked out most of the pain. Because once it gets to the pain part, I'm fucking blurry. Like I have fucking no idea. And it is that was probably my biggest boo-boo I ever had as a kid, for sure.
You know what's kind of interesting? How in our memory we never remember pain, physical pain. Isn't that weird? Like I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, oh, I don't even know what pain feels like. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Am I being weird? I don't know.
You're not being weird. I think some pain. Like, I think some pain. I think there's some certain pains where you're like, God, I remember exactly how the fuck that felt, you know? But
yeah,
there's certain pains that you just find it hard to recall. For like a perfect example is one time, this sounds so Filipino, but I cut myself opening a can of Vienna sausage. That sounds so Filipino, but as a kid, I opened a can of Vienna sausage and I slit open my finger. And for the life of me, I always remember that moment, but I can't tell you and remind you how or what that feels like. Or like certain scrapes and shit as a kid, I'm like, yeah, I can't remember what it's like. And as adults, you don't really scrape. I mean, unless you're like in a hazardous work occupation or hobby, like you don't really scrape yourself often. So the memory of that is so far gone compared to when I was a kid. I feel like I'd always remember what a scrape felt like. Yeah, you're not crazy. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was going crazy for a second. I was like, yeah, I don't remember what pain feels like because I've gotten injuries when in high school and middle school and stuff like that, and trying to think how it felt pretty hard. Maybe it's just like an evolution thing where you can't really remember the exact feeling of pain.
Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
interesting thing. I
So
think that's
yeah. So because you remember taste, right? You remember smell.
true.
Pain, not so much.
I think
I don't
naturally the
know.
mind wants to block that shit out. It's like, nah, bro, I don't want to remember that shit. Uh,
Also, speaking of weird thoughts,
mhm.
do you feel nostalgic? And I'm sure everyone can relate the feeling and sensation of the alcohol on a cut. Like the
Oh,
91% isopropyl
no,
alcohol, or
that's distinct. I feel like for everyone remembers
right?
exactly how that feels.
Yeah, or like just fanning yourself afterwards, or like you're blowing on it. You're like, oh, get out of here, or it bubbles up. I don't know. I feel like it's such a nostalgic memory for most people. I think.
Nostalgic is definitely a word. It's definitely a
Man, it's
word.
nostalgic. It's nostalgic.
Some might say traumatizing. Some might say.
It felt
Oh.
great, man. What do you mean?
I see. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we found our masochist here.
No,
uh,
guys, I'm very pain adverse.
Alrighty. Well, that is, I think, it for today's episode, folks. Khan, do you have anything left to leave the people besides traumatic memories?
Yeah, if you want to relive childhood memories, give yourself a little cut, go into the bathroom, put on some alcohol, fan yourself afterwards.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Anyways.
You know what, guys? You want to listen to childhood memories? Just fall off a slide. Just purposely just throw yourself off a slide, scrape yourself against some tan bark, and just sit there and really think about it and be like, man, I haven't seen my leg all grayed and scratched up like this since I was in elementary school. Oh, well, that is it for today's pod. Thank you guys so much for listening to this Friday podcast, this episode of the Daily Hotpot. Hopefully you guys have an amazing, amazing weekend, and we can't wait to join you for another week, this time week 9, since this was week 8. Can't wait to join you for week 9 of the Daily Hotpot to start off this amazing summer and this amazing June. Holy crap, Con. June.
Crazy.
Crazy, crazy. Well, as always, folks, take it easy.
Bye.